Good afternoon. My name is Eduardo Hernández and I'm here with my partner.
Alejandro Charur.
And today the main topic of this podcast is going to be democracy. And the main objective will be to demonstrate that democracy is the best way to administrate a country. And what do you think about this, Alejandro?
Well, my personal opinion about democracy is that the job that have been made in Mexico, in our country, with a democratic organization, we have been a very developed country. We have solved a lot of problems, and obviously it has its pros and cons of a democratic organization. And we hope with this podcast we can talk about these pros and cons of this type of government.
Well, the word democracy comes from Greek and means something similar to government by the people. So issues relating to democracy have been discussed for several thousand years, but there is no definition of the term on which everybody in the world would agree. This is partly due to democracy being something that is constantly being developed and altered. However, there are some things that many can agree are related to democracy. For example, the equal dignity and rights of all people, freedom of opinion, freedom of the press, and freedom of expression. That all are equal in the eyes of the law, and that free elections are held. And you, Alejandro, what do you think about this?
Well, about the main difficulties of democracy, I really feel that some people might think different points of view about democracy, but really democracy is just a way that the people can be heard, can have their own voice, and have the right to vote. So defining the country, or in the variety of countries that we have in the world, democracy can be held in a different way. But in Mexico, sometimes people only have the right to vote, have the freedom of speech, and sometimes have difficulties because our representatives are really not a good example, and that's what I really think about this.
Also, it is important to not get confused when defining a democracy, because there are different types of governments. For example, you can find an oligarchy, and this is a government in which control is exercised by a small group of individuals whose authority generally is based on wealth or power. On the other side, you can have a dictatorship, and this is a form of government in which there is only one ruler and has all the power. And I think that is very important to know which type of government is the one that is actually working on your country, because if you know this, you can be a very good active citizen and make change in your community, and to know what the candidates and the representatives are doing to your community is also very important. And Alejandro, do you have something to say about this?
Something I have to say is that we really need to be informed in the moment that we are voting for our representatives or our candidates. Sometimes candidates not only have good intentions, sometimes they could be bad intentions. So people and society really need to know for who you are voting, because you need to know this will be your representative. In the Mexican scenario, it will be a representative for 6 years. And in 6 years, a lot of things can happen. So there have been cases when we see a democratic system, and sometimes it changes to an oligarchy, or sometimes it can change to a dictatorship in a very bad situation. But we need to make a conscious vote and be informed as a society. If we have the right to vote, we need to be informed.
Thank you, Alejandro. That's very interesting. And also, another important aspect that needs to be taken into account is that in a direct democracy, people vote on policies directly. And a very good example is the Brexit referendum, where people got to directly influence the outcome of the result. And nowadays, people think that are living on a direct democracy, and they're actually not. And this term has been popularized in order to control the public opinion of the society. And Alejandro, what can you say about this?
What I say is that sometimes in a representative democracy, This is the real definition. It's not the same as a direct democracy or authentic democracy as people really think. And a representative democracy is when people vote for representatives who present a particular plan. There are a group of persons that share the the consciousness and the freedom of speech of people. People don't go directly and vote for a referendum or another type of plan of a structure. Ideas and policies are asked for people to vote for them. However, gets the majority vote has a mandate to carry out his policies. In this system, the voter does not have direct control over the outcome. That's the main reason of a representative government. Some countries we live in a representative government when we think we live in a direct. So that's the main problem of these these systems.
Very interesting. And we also do not have a guarantee that this representative, as you said, is going to accomplish or do all the things that he said that he's going to do. And political parties in Mexico have a lot of power and influence because they receive a lot of money and resources from the government. So it's a lot easier for them to win the campaigns because it's extremely expensive for some other candidates that do not have this type of financial support.
That's really correct. We have some specific cases, and not even in Mexico. We have a case here in Nuevo León. What really happened is that Jaime Rodríguez Calderón, aka El Bronco, is the former governor of Nuevo León. And in his candidate campaign, a lot of businessmen gave him financial support, millions of pesos, in exchange of also known as benefits in certain aspects. In the moment he became the maximum authority in Nuevo León, these businessmen were people that were very successful on this period of time. These type of cases happen a lot in these called phenomena as political parties and also with a connection with exterior and private companies.
Okay, and what could be the unfulfilled promises of democratic systems? How is it perceived in the Mexican scenario?
Well, these promises created by the presidential candidates, unfortunately in our country, the majority of times is wrong or even fake. People believe in certain arguments that our representatives promise to society. Because we live in a country where minimum salary is very low, where people have a very hard time looking for jobs, and people basically get bluffed with better economic ways of living and a better health system and an easier lifestyle. So many things that just say are kept in just promises, and this is the hard thing and the bad of the Mexican candidates.
And that is very interesting of you to say because sadly in Mexico the government has a huge problem of corruption and this issue creates insecurity in us because we as citizens cannot trust the promises of our own representatives and we as a community need to be able to trust to each other in order for us to progress, and that's something that needs to be changed right away.
I really think that our democracy is having a very important moment right now. Why? With the change of governments and the change of Mexican president from former President Enrique Peña Nieto and the future President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, being a person of left idealism and Mexico having always PRI or PAN in the power. These changes will be identified by the time AMLO takes power and starts to take action. Because, as we all Mexicans know, his main objective was helping the poor people, helping the people that are really in need. And we hope the big percentage of corruption that we are living right now in our country can be gone forever.
Thank you, Alejandro. And for this part we have a special guest, Roberto. Te quisiera preguntar, ¿qué opinas tú de la democracia en nuestro país en la actualidad?
Pienso que en México la gente no está lo suficientemente educada como para tomar una decisión adecuada y pienso que los partidos políticos no quieren que las personas estén educadas para que la gente sea un poco más controlable y poder aprovecharse de ellos dándoles solo un poco de lo que en realidad deberían de darles.
Muchas gracias, Roberto. And finally, I'd like to say that even though democracies have a lot of negative aspects, at the end, I think that democracies are a lot better than the other types of government because it promotes equality and it helps the community and the society to progress. And Alejandro, what you would like to say?
I would like to finish this podcast by just saying that we need to only consider to know that if our government or administration is a representative government or a direct democracy. This is very important to know so we can have a very good administration and really be conscious about the people that will be leading our country and that will be answering by the voice of all Mexicans. Thank you very much.